From the moment you pick up a drink and take a sip, you're probably not thinking about the unseen universe inside your body. You're reaching for wine, beer, or something stronger to relax, celebrate, or socialize, but with every swallow, you're also pouring a chemical into a living ecosystem that is more complex than any rainforest. We usually picture alcohol as a party starter or a stress reliever, yet it has another side that is far older and far more fundamental. Alcohol, in its various forms, has been used for centuries as a cleanser, a sanitizer, and even as medicine long before modern laboratories existed. A splash of wine on a wound, spirits poured into dirty water to make it safer to drink, or strong alcohol applied to disinfect surgical tools. All these practices remind us of one thing: alcohol kills microbes. And that raises an interesting question. If alcohol is powerful enough to wipe out germs on a countertop or in a hospital, what happens to the trillions of microscopic organisms that live inside our bodies when we drink? Do they die off too? Or is the relationship more complicated? To explore this, we need to understand both what alcohol is and what your gut microbiome does. Alcohol isn't just the buzz in your glass. Chemically speaking, it's a family of compounds that all share a particular structure, a chain of carbon atoms carrying a hydroxyl group, which is an oxygen bound to a hydrogen. That may sound technical, but what matters is that this structure makes alcohols interact with fats and water in unusual ways. At high concentrations, these molecules slip into cell membranes and break them apart. That's why something like rubbing alcohol, which is often around 70% strength, instantly kills bacteria and viruses on contact. It literally dissolves the barrier that keeps their insides from spilling out. But the drinks humans enjoy are far weaker. Vodka is about 40% ethanol, wine tends to hover around 12%, and beer is usually closer to 5%. Those levels are nowhere near as lethal as laboratory disinfectants. Still, research has shown that even at lower strengths, ethanol can destabilize membranes and trigger reactions inside microbes that leave them damaged. So the liquid in your pint glass or wine bottle may not be as mild as it seems. Over the centuries, this microbial effect may have been one of the reasons alcohol became such a staple in human cultures. Long before we understood bacteria or viruses, sailors carried barrels of beer and rum on long journeys, not only for morale but because those beverages were often safer than questionable water sources. Historical records hint that wine and spirits offered some protection against diseases like cholera, which is caused by a nasty bacterium that attacks the intestines and unleashes relentless diarrhea. Later investigations confirmed that beer and wine can knock out Vibrio cholerae, stopping it from establishing itself in the gut. And cholera wasn't the only threat dulled by alcohol. Some experiments and case studies suggest that wine can disable pathogens behind food poisoning, like salmonella, or even viral culprits such as norovirus, which is notorious for sweeping through cruise ships and schools. One study looked at people who ate oysters contaminated with hepatitis A virus capable of damaging the liver. Those who drank wine or other drinks above 10% alcohol were less likely to end up infected. These findings suggest that in small doses, alcohol inside the digestive tract acts like a shield against certain microscopic invaders. That doesn't mean every sip is sterilizing your stomach. Most of the friendly microbes that make up your microbiome live much farther down in the colon. By the time alcohol travels through your esophagus, lands in your stomach, and trickles into your small intestine, much of it has already been absorbed into your bloodstream. The microbes that matter most are often tucked away beyond alcohol's immediate reach. This is fortunate, because if every drink killed off huge portions of your microbiome, our health would be in constant jeopardy. Instead, the picture that emerges is more nuanced. Alcohol can sometimes reduce the numbers of dangerous organisms while leaving the helpful ones largely intact. And in some cases, it might even support them indirectly. Take wine, for instance. Beyond ethanol, wine contains polyphenols, which are plant-based compounds that act like food for certain beneficial bacteria. When you drink wine, those polyphenols can make their way into the lower intestines, where microbes feast on them and transform them into smaller molecules that your body can use. These byproducts can do surprising things, like binding to harmful bacterial membranes and weakening them, or supporting metabolic processes that reduce risks associated with obesity. Some scientists argue that this could explain why moderate wine consumption is sometimes linked to better heart health and improved metabolic profiles. Essentially, wine doesn't just pass through, it interacts with your inner ecosystem in ways we're still piecing together. But moderation is the key word here. A single glass of red wine at dinner may be very different from a night of heavy drinking. Studies illustrate this contrast clearly. One investigation in the early 2000s involving hundreds of participants showed that light drinking seemed to lower the risk of infection by Helicobacter pylori, the bacterium responsible for painful stomach ulcers. Yet the protective effect vanished as consumption increased. Drink too much, and the risk of infection actually went up. This reversal reveals a crucial point. Alcohol doesn't follow the simple rule of more is better. Beyond a certain threshold, its effects flip from potentially protective to undeniably harmful. Heavy drinking sets off a cascade of negative consequences inside the gut. For starters, alcohol can slow down the natural movements of the intestines, essentially paralyzing the smooth rhythm that normally pushes food and waste along. When that happens, bacteria get extra time to multiply in the upper digestive tract, leading to an overgrowth that throws everything out of balance. Harmful microbes can seize the opportunity, crowding out beneficial ones. Meanwhile, alcohol interferes with the genes inside the cells, lining your intestines and stomach. These cells are supposed to regulate stomach acid production, one of your body's strongest defenses against incoming pathogens. Long-term alcohol abuse can disrupt that system so badly that acid levels swing wildly, sometimes too much, sometimes too little. In either case, the defenses weaken, and opportunistic bacteria find openings. It doesn't stop there. Alcohol and its byproducts, such as acetaldehyde, are corrosive to the delicate barrier between your gut and the rest of your body. Imagine the lining of your intestines as a durable plastic bag, meant to keep the contents sealed off. Regular. Heavy drinking pokes holes in that barrier, allowing toxins and fragments of bacteria to leak into your bloodstream. This forces your liver to work overtime filtering out the mess, and as the workload piles up, the liver becomes inflamed, scarred, and eventually unable to keep up. The gut-liver connection is so tight that damage in one almost always echoes in the other. Over time, the cycle of gut leakage and liver strain becomes a major driver of disease. And then there's the immune system. Alcohol is notorious for suppressing immune defenses, making you more vulnerable to infections across the board. A body that regularly faces alcohol overload is less prepared to fend off not only gut pathogens, but also respiratory bugs, skin, infections, and more. It's a system-wide weakening that leaves you exposed. The irony is sharp. A substance once valued for its ability to ward off contamination can in excess open the door to an army of invaders. So, what does all this mean for someone enjoying a casual drink? The science points to a complex balance. A moderate amount, particularly in forms like wine that carry additional compounds such as polyphenols, might give you a small edge against foodborne illnesses. It may even nurture beneficial microbes in ways that ripple into cardiovascular or metabolic health. But the line between helpful and harmful is razor thin, and stepping beyond it quickly tips the scales toward damage. Excessive alcohol not only disrupts your microbiome, but also compromises your stomach's protective acid, weakens the intestinal lining, strains your liver, and undercuts your immunity. What starts as a toast to health can spiral into a direct attack on the very systems designed to keep you alive. It's important to remember, too, that alcohol doesn't act in isolation. Everyone's microbiome is unique, shaped by genetics, diet, environment, and lifestyle. Two people can drink the same amount, yet their gut bacteria may respond in completely different ways. Some individuals may reap a small benefit, while others might edge closer to harm, even at what would be considered moderate levels. This individuality is part of what makes the research both fascinating and complicated. Scientists are only beginning to understand the vast diversity of the microbiome and how substances like alcohol weave into that tapestry. Think about the bigger picture. Inside, you are trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that help digest food, produce vitamins, regulate immune responses, and even influence mood and behavior. This symbiotic relationship is so essential that disrupting it can trigger ripple effects throughout your body. That's why questions about alcohol's impact matter. They're not just about whether a glass of wine kills germs, but about how our choices reshape the ecosystem within us. Every drink is not just a chemical poured into your bloodstream, but a signal sent into a community of organisms that has co-evolved with us for millennia. Sometimes that signal is neutral, occasionally it is supportive, and too often, when taken, in excess it is destructive. When people debate alcohol's role in health, the conversation often swings between extremes. Either it's portrayed as a miracle tonic or as pure poison. The truth, as usual, is more subtle. Alcohol is neither wholly friend nor absolute foe. It is a tool that humanity has used for thousands of years with both benefits and dangers. As with many tools, the outcome depends on how it's used. For gut bacteria and the immune system, moderation may tilt the scales toward resilience, but indulgence flips them toward vulnerability. The next time you raise a glass, consider this hidden dimension. You're not just sharing a drink with friends or marking an occasion. You're hosting a chemical guest that will mingle with the unseen residents of your gut. For some, the visit might be harmless, even slightly protective. For others, especially when the visits become frequent and excessive, it's a guest that overstays its welcome, trashes the place, and leaves your body to clean up the mess. The balance between those outcomes lies in the choices we make, sip by sip.